On the weekend of Labor Day in 1990, the Sousa house on Beachview Drive was quiet and peaceful. 13-year-old Leah Sousa had fallen asleep on the couch while her mother, Laura, was fast asleep in her bedroom, and her baby brother, Michael, was asleep in his playpen next to Laura. The Sousas lived in Cumberland Beach in Simcoe County, Ontario. This is a small, quiet community near Lake Couchiching. It's about an hour and a half's drive north of Toronto. The Sousa home is a small 600-square-foot cottage, not too far from a public beach. The home had several trees and shrubs around it, with a vacant lot behind it. This quiet place would be shocked by what would happen on Beachview Drive on September 1st, 1990. Police have called it the most brutal murder in Ontario history. Between 1:30 and 3 a.m. on the morning of September 1st, an unknown person snuck into the backyard of the Sousa home. They broke the glass on the back door and went inside. Investigators believe they broke the glass with a metal object, like a pipe or a tire iron. They first went into the bedroom, where then 36-year-old Laura slept. The family had just returned after being gone for about a month, staying at Laura's sister's home in Maddock. They were only home 36 hours before they would be attacked. And because of this, Laura believes that whoever did this must have known her and known that she was home alone. Laura would not even get the chance to defend herself. The sound of the glass on the back door breaking did not wake them up. The intruder would club Laura in her sleep with the metal object. Police say that she tried to call for help, but her hand would be broken, and the portable phone would be smashed next to her. Laura was beaten brutally to unconsciousness. There would be blood spatter all over the bedroom and the playpen. The infant Michael, though, would not be harmed. This person would then grab Leah off the couch and drag her down 3 steps and outside to the backyard. What made them choose to take Leah outside is unclear. They would sexually assault Leah and then beat her with the metal object. Neighbors would actually say that they heard screaming and shouting early that morning, but had dismissed it as being late-night partiers. This was a long weekend by a beautiful lake, and people were celebrating the end of summer all over town. A Reddit user on a thread about Leah's death in r/unresolved mysteries mentioned that they went to school with Leah and that their mother didn't live far from the Sousa house on Lee Avenue. They mentioned that their mother remembered hearing people pass through their backyard that night. The voice of one male and one female. Their family dog went nuts when they heard them running back through their yard later, too. It was not that uncommon for people to cut through backyards at that time, though, so her mother did not call the police. Leah would pass away that early morning in her mother's backyard, and Leah's friend would try to call her several times that morning. After not answering for a while, her friend would ride their bike over to the Sousa house around 11:30 a.m. and see Leah laying face down in the yard. And at first, this friend thought Leah was just playing some kind of weird joke. The closer the friend got, though, it became clear that Leah was not playing around. There was a large patch of bloody, stepped-on grass around her, and it was clear something horrible had happened to her. This friend and their father went inside and discovered Laura and baby Michael and called the police. Laura would be in critical condition for days following the attacks. The same day, on September 1st, 2 teen boys were overheard talking about the murder in Aurelia's Couchiching Park around 11:30 p.m. One boy said that they knew who killed Leah. A third boy had overheard this and relayed this information to the police. The boy knew who they were by sight, but not by name. These 2 teens have never been identified. Laura would have to have reconstructive surgery to repair the damage done to her face. She has metal plates in her head and suffers from dizzy spells. She has severe damage to one of her eyes and struggles with blurry vision. Laura has tried hypnotism and even being injected with sodium pentothal or the truth serum in order to recover any memory she might have of that night. Even when doctors told her she should give up, she refused. She would even visit a brain lab that tried a procedure that would tickle her brain cells in the damaged area of her brain to try and remember the event.
This experiment is testing the idea that mystical perceptions and paranormal experiences can be turned on at will, not by hypnosis or shamanic drumming, but by a scientist, stimulating nerve activity in the brain. The volunteer sits blindfolded in a soundproof chamber. This sensory deprivation allows the mind to focus on electromagnetic patterns transmitted across the brain through this modified crash helmet. They're able to simulate the exact brain patterns that occur in near-death experiences.
Experts say that memory is not instantly recorded. It can take 20 to 30 minutes for a memory to fully stick. Laura's brain did not get enough time to remember anything before she was beaten unconscious. Doctors say that her memory has been neurologically destroyed, not suppressed. The memories are simply not there, though Laura still believes that the face of her daughter's killer is lost somewhere deep in her mind. Laura remained in hiding for years after the murder of Leah. She was constantly in fear that this person would return to kill her. She was so overwhelmed with fear that she could not leave her son alone, and she was not able to work for a long while. She lost her home, and it was repossessed and sold at a loss. She was given $18,000 from a victims board for assistance after the attack to help her recover. However, after funeral costs and paying her mother back for the down payment on the house, she knew she needed a lot more help for her and her son. The attacks had left her disabled, distraught, and completely helpless. She asked the board for another lump sum and monthly assistance so she and her son could survive. I was unable to confirm if she was awarded this assistance, but Laura is now in her late 60s, and the then 9-month-old Michael is 30 this year. The killer would leave behind some bloody shoe prints. The shoe was a size 9 or 10 Nike, all-leather court or tennis shoe. The metal object used to kill Leah would never be found, nor the killer's bloody clothes. The police think that they would have to have gotten cleaned up quickly afterwards, and someone may have noticed this. Criminal profiler Jim Van Allen believes that this killer is likely of low intelligence with little to no skills. They were likely raised with harsh discipline and have a propensity for extreme sexual violence. The entire motive for that night was the expression of that sexual violence. Van Allen believes that they have likely broken into many homes before. It's likely that the killer may have been in the midst of a personal crisis that triggered their desire to carry out these attacks. The intruder was likely drunk or on drugs that night. Van Allen even thinks that they would be known but not liked in the community. Someone like this would intuitively be feared by women. This investigator believes that this person knew Laura beforehand. This was not likely some kind of random attack. It was very personal. The attacker would have known that the family was home. The house is small and does not stand out particularly from others. Neighbors were fairly close by. There was significant risk in choosing this cottage to commit this crime. Four months after the murder, Brian Timothy Ellison stabbed and killed 17-year-old Sandra Bannister at a New Year's Eve party. It was discovered that Ellison's grandmother lived just down the street from the Sousa house. And Ellison denies being in Cumberland Beach the night of the murder. In an interview with CTV, he says,
"I was not in Cumberland Beach that night. I got 60 people to back me up. All I know is I had nothing to do with it."
Despite Ellison's denial, police believe that he was indeed in Cumberland Beach that night. He would be arrested and questioned, but would be released due to lack of evidence. He only spent 6 years in prison for the murder of Sandra. Police were so interested in him that he was actually followed for another 3 years after he was released. The Reddit user mentioned earlier says that many people in the community seemed to think that his alibi that night was not credible, and he was likely the one who had committed the murder, but the police have bungled the investigation. Paul Bernardo, a serial rapist and serial killer from Toronto, was mentioned as a person of interest not long after the murder, but police believe he is not likely the killer. There was also a claim that serial killer Michael Wayne Gray admitted to the murder. He was active in the 80s and 90s all over Canada, including Toronto and even Seattle, Washington. He is claimed to kill 16 people, but only 11 are confirmed. A man who once shared a prison cell with him was quoted as saying,
"I was in prison with a serial killer named Mike Wayne McGray. He described in great detail to me this murder. Maybe because I am an ex-con or there is a $50,000 reward, my credibility is questioned. No one seemed to take me seriously, but I am telling you, I interviewed the devil. I was a career criminal who thought I was a bad person until I met Wayne. I have never reoffended since my release from prison, and I have turned my life around. I truly believe with all my heart this man did this crime, which he described in great detail to me. I am ashamed to admit I befriended him while in prison, but sometimes you keep your enemies closer than your friends, as the saying goes. I grew up in a small town in Vancouver Island and had no way of ever knowing about this crime. I don't care about the reward money, although I would not refuse it. I have looked into this crime, and I think the family deserves closure. McGray told me if he was ever questioned about this crime, he would not deny his guilt. Please, someone, hear this."
Police have never connected him to this case publicly, though. Over the years, police have interviewed over 1,500 people from coast to coast in Canada. There were door-to-door interviews and evidence that has been re-examined several times using new forensic methods. Not much has come of this, though. There was a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of Leah's killer. There are billboards with reward and photos of Leah asking, "Do you know who killed Leah Sousa?" These billboards would be along Highway 11 from Cumberland Beach to Barrie. Many in this area of Canada were afraid that this killer would attack again. It was statistically likely that someone like this would commit a similar act of extreme violence. Van Allen believes that the killer is still in the area, that the killer either didn't have the money to flee or felt that they would never be caught. On Web Sleuths, there is an interesting thread on the murder, although it is short. There is a comment that mentions that police may have let it slip to a nearby neighbor the morning that Leah was found, that her hair had been cut. This is not confirmed by any public source, though, but could be information that is valuable in figuring out what kind of person would do this. Perhaps someone like this has done something similar to other victims. Perhaps they've displayed this level of violence in other ways in their own personal romantic relationships. An article on Canadian CRIMEOPEDIA mentions that retired Ontario Provincial Police Officer Barrie Rule believes that a man he calls Larry Talbot could be responsible for the murder and many other murders in Ontario. In his book, A Viable Suspect, the story of multiple murders and how police forces' reach proved too short for Canada's most notorious cold case, he mentions that in 1971, Larry Talbot had broken into his home using a metal object and tried to attack his fiancée. Luckily, Rule woke up and was able to subdue and arrest Talbot. Talbot was a traveling salesman and would travel with a rape kit. He unfortunately would die before being adequately investigated for a number of slayings in southern Ontario, including 1953 Lynn Harper, 12 from Van Astra, 1968 Linda White, 19, who went missing from London, whose remains were found in Norfolk County in 1973, 1969 Jacqueline English, 15, went missing from London and body found near Tillensburg. 1973, Pauline Ivy Dudley, 17, from Oakville. He was the prime suspect in this case. 1982, Leah Adriano, 25, from Oakville. Her body was found in rural Oakville. 1992, Valerie Stevens, 19, from Toronto. Her body was found in Burford. 1992, Cindy Holloway, 17, last seen in Midland. Her body was found near Felston. In Laura's book, Poetic Justice, The Search for Leah's Killers, she says that her brother was a drug dealer and had been living with them at the time, but he was not home. She suspects that it could be possible that the intruder or intruders were actually looking for her brother that night. Police are still looking for tips. They are hoping that after all this time, someone will remember something. The Ontario police have not given up on finding out who committed this heinous crime, and neither has her mother. Laura has said for the last decade that she's been getting visions of someone coming to her in her dreams. They tell her that they know who Leah's killer is and they want to help her, and she hopes that one day this vision comes true. A quote from Laura in 1994 really shows her anger and determination in finding her daughter's killer. "I just want you to know that you're a coward," she said. "You didn't have the courage to attack us during the day when we could have gouged your eyes out. I'll see you soon. Count on it, coward." Laura doesn't want anyone to forget Leah, the bright, bubbly, beautiful girl that was taken from this world. She deserves justice, and her mother deserves answers. The reward for information about her killer still stands. If you know anything about this case or have any tips or clues for investigators, please contact the OPP or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS.
I'm really upset. 25 years is a lifetime. My daughter would be 38 years old now. She was robbed of her life, her dreams.
That's enough.
I can't stand the fact that they raped and murdered my daughter, and they're free at large. I can't rest until I see them arrested, convicted. But I'm so sick and tired of waiting.
But she says someone knows who killed her daughter and is pleading for that person to contact police.
I am begging this person to come forward because this person holds the key to the arrest and conviction of our evil murderers. If this person does not come forward, our case may remain unsolved.
That's all I have for you in this video. Thanks for sticking with me. Please like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Thank you, and I will see you next time.